I am so excited to chat today with Scott Neal, who is a consultant with FranServe, and also an expert franchise consultant with years of experience helping entrepreneurs navigate the world of franchise ownership. So today I am going to ask Scott some questions just kind of about his world in franchising that may be helpful for anyone who is interested in learning more about franchising and kind of the process from a consultant's perspective. So, Scott, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So, yeah, I've got a few questions for you. So, why don't we just dive in and you just start by telling me a little bit more about your background and what has inspired you to become a franchise consultant.
Sure thing. It's probably important to note I grew up in a relatively small town in the South, and my father was a pharmacist, and he owned a number of drugstores, and so I kind of grew up in a family-owned business type of
Yeah.
thing. But shift forward a few years, a lot of my background is in home building. I was VP operations for one of the larger home builders in the country, and like a lot of people, and like a lot of people today, 2008 bad economy, right? So
Yeah.
got laid off. Not saying today's economy is bad, but there's still a
Yeah.
lot of there's a lot of
Yeah.
shift going on, right?
Lots of shifting. Yes.
Yeah, so I got laid off and had two young children at the time, and uh, my wife and I really wanted to stay in Tampa, Florida, to primarily to keep the kids in the schools they were in because we were very happy with the schools they were in, and there were no jobs in home building, like zero, none.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so I go to a career fair that was sponsored by my employer or former employer. Great company. It was provided by them. Anyway, ran into a franchise consultant, and long story short, ended up buying a Certapro Painters franchise.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and kind of really enjoyed that. It was like anything, it was a lot of work, but it was very rewarding. And ran that for a number of years and sold it and did really well when we sold it. Um, and then got back into home building with a much smaller builder for a few years. But I was having to commute 2, 3 hours each way every day, and that was not fun. Um,
Hmm.
and I had always, since I had used the consultant before, I had always thought about, that's kind of interesting. And then out of the blue, I get a phone call from somebody from FranServe. And so I really started thinking about it then, and pulled the trigger after a few months. And here we are.
And here we are. Look at that.
Yeah.
And you never look back.
No, no, it's been a lot of fun, and it's a lot of work, but it's been
Sure.
a lot of fun too. There's a lot of rewarding things involved.
Rewarding. Yeah, I
Hmm.
was just gonna say it's got to feel rewarding. So I guess when it does come to working with clients, what is your process for understanding their goals, their skills, and even their like financial needs before you go ahead and start recommending any franchise options?
For me, I try to approach it with really just two or three things, and the first thing for me is why. Why do
Hmm.
you want to do this? I mean, you want to you want to get rich. You want to
Yeah.
think you can work 5 hours a week. What's your why, right?
Yeah.
And then the next question for me is, what do you want your day to look like,
Hmm.
right? Do you want to be able to see your kids' baseball game? Do you want to go to the recital?
Hmm.
Uh, do you want to knock out 12 hours a day? Do you want to get up on be on the computer for 2 hours a day and be done? Um,
Hmm.
and in some respects, you can do all of the above. The last point is a little more difficult,
Yeah.
but but what do you want your day to look like? And then I think once you understand those two things, I do always ask, um, what did you have in mind? Is there a particular industry that you have in mind?
Yeah.
Um, that type of thing. And you often find that a lot of times that particular industry, if they have one in mind, doesn't meet the answers to the first two questions.
Yeah.
So, but I like to ask the question and
Yeah.
go from there. And then I'll address the investment level towards the end of the first conversation. And
Hmm.
I just simply say, because it's true. I'm like, I'm going to do some research on your behalf, and I'm going to try to work for you, and we can talk about some options for you. But I don't want to come back and talk to you about something that's, $500,000 investment when
Right.
you've got 75 to
Yeah.
invest. And oh, by the way, that's fantastic. If you've got 75, you've got more than most.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of how I address it. And I try to take the pressure off of that for people because it's the first time you've talked to somebody, and now we're talking about, what's your net worth, and what are you comfortable investing? But you got to ask the question to
Yep.
do the right job for the person. So those are my main points. Hopefully the conversation develops. Hopefully, it sounds weird, I guess, but hopefully the conversation is very conversational. That
Yeah.
it's two people and you're just two people working together trying to help each other. But those are really my main points.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you got to make sure you're asking those questions. You have to make sure, because like you said, you don't want to present something that's like unrealistic, right? And then that kind of could turn the whole meeting in another direction. So being thorough and asking that is definitely very important.
Yeah.
So kind of on the other side of things, like how do you evaluate and vet franchises before you recommend them to a client? I guess like what criteria is most important to you?
I not that I would shy away from an emerging brand, but I do take a bit more comfort in something that's established that has a number of franchisees,
Mhm.
has an item 19 with the historical financial performance. Um, if it's something that is relatively new but looks legit, and then you got to really just dig in more and learn, go as deep as you can. What kind of experience does the management team have? What type of industry is it?
Yep.
Those types of things. But I really think you've got to get to know, as a consultant, you got to get to know the people in the organization. And it's like anything else. It doesn't take you long to figure out if they're good people or bad people,
Yep.
right? So but you got to get in and talk to people and understand what the culture is, um, and go from there. It's like vetting anything else.
Yeah.
It's just good people. Do they have a track record, preferably? Um, and that's that. And at the end of the day, if you're presenting the right things to people, the candidate's going to be responsible for doing their due diligence, and they're going to have the opportunity to speak with existing franchisees and all of that. But you want to make sure that's going to be a good experience for them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Again, another thorough part of the process, right? You want to
Yeah,
know who you're sending these people to that you just got to know. And like you said, that have just built up a relationship of working together. So you don't want to be leading them astray or passing them off to people that maybe don't, have a good kind of matching sort of process to what you have, right? It's got to be thorough. So that would
right.
make a little sense. Um, Now, I'm not sure if you have a story or not, or like can think of anyone in particular, but what's an example of maybe a challenging client placement that you had, and how did you work through that to find that person a good franchise fit?
I don't know how challenging it was, but in some respects, it was maybe the most challenging, and in some respects, maybe the least. But I had
Yeah.
a I had a candidate in California, and he had some experience in that home services sector, um, and we were working together. Normally, I'll present 3, 4 brands to people, and he was like, give me more, give me more, give me more.
Yeah.
And so I ended up giving him like way too many. And he read them all, read them all, read them all over a weekend. And then Monday he calls me and says, this is the one right here. Well, he had some money, but a lot of it was tied up in some kind of crypto account and he couldn't get to it.
Oh.
His wife was kind of lukewarm on it. He had a
Mm.
very, very close relationship with his parents. His parents were dead set against him going into business for himself. He was a veteran, um, had just transitioned probably 6 months prior, and he was dead set. He was like, "This is what we're doing. I don't care. I don't care what mom and dad think." I mean, he's like, "I do care, but I'm going to push through that kind of thing." And he figured out the money piece. Um, I actually advised him against the route he went. It was kind of questionable, I think, as far as the way he financed it. Um, but I'm happy to say that he was able to pay it back very quickly before it became a bad situation for him.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So, everybody but this guy, everybody in his circle, right? His family circle and friends was really opposed to him making this leap. And he
Yeah.
was
No
he
support.
was he was all in, and he's very successful today, and I still keep up with him.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That kind of ties into like another question. I mean, I'll get to that question too, but it's nice to know that it was something that was challenging that did have a happy ending, really.
yeah,
So again, like you said in the beginning, it's rewarding. It's part of the job. It's kind of probably what fuels your fire, and you're like, all right, on to the next. What's next? So that's good. Now, how do you tailor your approach for clients with varying financial situations or business backgrounds?
say that again, Lindsay.
How do you tailor your approach for clients with varying financial situations or business backgrounds?
Okay. um Everybody's different, right?
Yeah.
um I kind of mentioned it a minute ago that, I mean, early on you have to have the conversation that
Yep.
you're going to have some skin in the game, regardless
Yep.
of what that is. You're going to have some skin in the game. Um, and some people don't. And when they don't, I'm still going to talk to them and we'll talk about, you know, maybe if you could do X, we could get to that place in 6 months or a year or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to treat the guy who doesn't have the cash to put in. I'm going to treat him the same as the guy who has a $500,000, liquid guy or gal, I should say. Um, but everybody's different. There's so many options to finance, whether that be through SBA or, utilizing personal funds. There's ways to use your personal retirement funds,
Hmm.
and the business part is great if you have a business background. It's great if you have
Yeah.
some industry experience. But the reason you buy a franchise is you're buying a proven system
Correct.
and you're buying support. And that support speaks to your earlier question of how do you vet,
Yeah.
franchisors. Um, so you're buying a system, you're buying support. All you need is a good attitude and
Hmm.
work ethic. Um, so yeah, past experience comes into it a little bit, but
Yeah.
you're buying a system.
You're buying a system. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. I say that all
Correct. Yeah.
the time. So yeah, now how about a particular story about a client who did choose the right business for themselves, and they found great success. Like how, I mean, you have kind of answered this, but how does that make you feel? I know it's rewarding, but you really just helped someone fulfill their dream of getting into business for themselves. They've changed their life now. So what is there a particular story, or like just how does that feel overall?
It feels fantastic. You know, I try to check in with everybody I've made placements with, periodically. I don't want to bug them, but I keep up with them, say on LinkedIn or check in on their websites, and I will send them a personal message a couple times a year, and it's fantastic when somebody says, "Wow, man, thank you. We're doing great. We're doing better than we thought we were gonna do." You know, um, I had a guy recently who I placed a couple of years ago, and I just sent him a little message, and he was like, "Man," he said, "I am working like crazy, and I have never been happier.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you, thank
so
you so much."
good.
Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's gotta feel good. And I always, when I'm talking to people too, I'm just like, oh, it's gotta be so comforting just kind of knowing that you have someone that has taken the time to get to know you, kind of everything about you, and has helped you narrow down the opportunities that would be a good fit for you. Otherwise, I feel like a lot of people would kind of stay away from that because of how overwhelming it could be trying to go out and like explore all these different kind of brands on their own. They wouldn't even know where to start.
right.
So, it having someone with knowledge and experience is probably so helpful. So, in return, knowing that you were a big part of that, like for sure,
Yeah, it's very
feels,
cool.
yeah, yeah. Now, what are some of the most common misconceptions that you hear from clients about franchising? How do you address that?
I think Lindsay, I think it boils down to probably two things. Number one, most people think franchising is simply is McDonald's.
Yeah.
You know, it's McDonald's or Domino's.
Yeah.
Um, the likelihood of you buying a McDonald's or Domino's is pretty low. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but it's
Yeah.
pretty low. Most people don't realize that there are opportunities in franchising in pretty much every industry you could imagine. People relate it to fast food so much, but I mean, there's opportunities in home services, painting, plumbing, roofing, senior care, um, cost reduction for other business, B2B cost reduction. There's opportunities in just about any industry you can imagine. The pet space, crime scene
Mhm.
cleanup.
Yeah.
There's everything you can imagine, and people just don't realize that.
Yeah.
We kind of equate it back to the big names and specifically, you know, specifically fast food. I think
Hmm.
so. The big thing is to kind of open people's eyes and say, no, no, no. There's so much opportunity out there, and
Yeah.
you know, once you kind of get that through, they're like, oh wow, and from there you can really get to work
Yep.
and find the right opportunity for them.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, so many options out there. It's like, where do we start? So, to kind of move past thinking that it's just food and that it's so much more than that and so much more interesting too than that, right? So that's so great to have a process in place to kind of explore all those options.
Yeah,
Um, Good. Well, I mean, Scott, I really, appreciate you joining me today and sharing your insights. I'm sure that this will be very valuable information for anyone who is interested in learning, more about franchising or business ownership. And, now even to know what it's like to be a franchise consultant. So
yeah.
thanks so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Good. We'll chat again soon.
Great.
All right, I am here with Scott Neal from FranServe. As you know, I've got a question for you today, so thank you so much for joining me.
Sure. Thank you.
So please tell me, what has your experience been like working with Schoolie Mitchell, and even what is it about Schoolie Mitchell that makes it so attractive to some of your clients?
Well, it's a unique opportunity. The vast majority of people don't know that's even a business, right?
Hmm.
It's a unique opportunity. The uh, the income stream is very unique to most businesses once you get up and running, very much so. And from a selfish standpoint, the the people at Schoolie Mitchell is very professional in the way they deal with people. Um, if you introduce somebody to Schoolie Mitchell it, that it's going to be a professional interaction, that it's going to be first class, and that's important. Um, it's important for your candidate, and it reflects on you. By the way, reflects
Yeah.
on me, and everything about Schoolie Mitchell is first class in the way they deal with people, the materials they provide, the information, the total experience, just a first class experience.
Well, that is all really good to know. We always do take pride in communication and making sure that we do provide a professional experience. Of course, it's a big deal. So, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.